Hey everyone, this is the clinical outcomes report assignment description video. So if we just look ahead, we finished the first one, which is our short-term medical documentation, our telemedicine counter, which finishes up this week, and our clinical outcomes report. The last one is our clinical outcomes report, as I said. The focus of this is on the sharing what you're doing at your clinical practice without it having to be research per se. So the goal of this is to share patient-reported and clinician-rated outcome measures. The report should be written from this perspective of introducing some type of intervention in form of different lenses. So if you're working with the same patient population, maybe the band or the ballet or military cadets or the baseball team, you can write it and frame it from that perspective. Or looking at it from the lens of a singular outcome tool, treating and measuring the same body part and looking at the same thing. So introducing, say, cupping therapy for people that are baseball players at the shoulder, or regardless of sport, say you're at a high school and you have a multitude of patients, that I'm going to treat everyone's ankle and see how it gets better when I do Graston at the ankle. Or a comparison of new interventions. So if you're saying I'm going to treat some people with Graston and some people with cupping, and I'm going to see which people got better relative to some specific criteria that links them all together. Your job is to introduce some type of myofascial treatment or something else that we've learned in class. I want to make that pretty clear. So either doing IASTM or cupping, or looking at something that we've done such as telemedicine, ergonomic assessments. You could do patient-centered care and goal setting. You could do any of the manual therapy for lumbar and SI that we discussed. It's got to be something that we've talked about in class up to this point. And it doesn't necessarily need to be something where you are applying a specific intervention. So if we think about being patient-centered care, we talked about how to goal set and how to measure that and do those things. You could do some of those similar things you talked about in that weekly assignment at this for your clinical outcomes report. You could also do stuff that you're actually doing in your clinical practice, like a Graston treatment and measuring and seeing its effectiveness. So first, your job is to identify who you're wanting to do it with, when you're going to do it, and why, and how you'll implement it. The goal is to start around this week and submit by March 15th. The reason for the process there is that you need to collect this on multiple patients. This should not be done in 1 to 2 days. If we look at the calendar here, March 15th is the Sunday of spring break, and so being mindful that I was going to make it due before y'all left for spring break, but I wanted to allow you the time over spring break to work on it. Sorry, I think it's the Friday. Yeah, that's the Friday of spring break, or Sunday of the spring break when we get back. So the goal is that you can work on it over break if you need to, but I wanted to allow you that time frame to put everything together. I'll evaluate you on the rubric at the bottom. Essentially, you're going to turn this into a full report. Describe your patients. You need to think about people's age, sex, height, weight, their diagnosis, things like that. What is the history or critical factors we need to know about them. Making an Excel spreadsheet or pulling data from your electronic medical records may be helpful here. Then you're going to do an intervention. Describe what you did, why you did it, the specific settings or how you integrated it in. And then for the outcome measures, you need to have at least a minimum one of each. So you need to have some type of clinician-based outcome measure. This can be strength, range of motion, their posture. You could do the REBA tools, something to assess from a clinician perspective. And then a patient-reported, you could do any type of generic or specific patient-reported outcome tool. These can be things that the patient would complete. Just to show y'all a quick website of these, let me pull that up. So there's a website called orthopedicscore.com. On orthopedicscore.com, if you've chosen a specific body region, you can click on it and have them complete it. So say this is a patient completed and you want to do something for the arm, shoulder, or hand, you can have them completed on here, and it actually scores it for you in this box right here. So this could be a quick way to integrate a patient-reported outcome measure into your practice for the purpose of this assignment. For the paper or the report that you put together, you need to discuss what or why you chose that tool and how you know that it is a good tool for your clinical practice. For your results, you'll describe using means or frequencies, a lot of descriptive data that you could easily do in Excel, and just tell me how people got better or worse. You don't need to do sophisticated stats for this, but you may create some tables to show how people got better or worse. And then you also need to look at the literature. Does a 1 degree or 1 centimeter difference on a weight-bearing lunge test have a meaningful or minimally clinical difference or meaningful detectable change? The answer to that is no. So how do you know what is enough to show that someone got better? Say you're using the Y-balance test or the FMS. What do you need to actually see on a change from beginning to end after your intervention to say that someone is better now? And then discuss it. Tell me what you think about the previous literature, what we know about the patient population, what we know about the intervention, and why did people get better or worse, or why did we not see the change that we expected to see? And then clinical application, that section you explain with the data. How do you take this and apply it in your future clinical practice, and what do you make a recommendation to others as athletic trainers in terms of this? So if we go and look at an example of this, this one is written from the idea of Graston for patients with chronic patellar heel pain. So they did this on 22 individuals. And they had 3 different groups. So they did some with Graston stretching, they did some with massage and stretching, and then stretching only. So they're comparing interventions here for a specific pathology. And so what they did was they administered the foot health status questionnaire and McGain pain questionnaire and the visual analog scale, which are all patient-reported outcome measures. And then they used those to see how people improved. And so for this purpose, you can go through here and see what they did for their intervention. It should easily describe the basic components of what was included. They took some pictures here to show how the instruments were used. And then they went through and also told you about how many times they performed the different techniques and what they did. And so it should be very easy to replicate, and its explanation, but in the same time, it's something that's clinician friendly. These investigators used sophisticated stats for your purpose of the assignment. You don't have to, but this is stuff that you could easily put together and say, like, this is the change that's necessary, this is what we found, this is what we didn't find. So if we look here, the minimal important difference for this tool is a 7. So you can see that everyone got better here. But for this tool, it's a 14, and only Graston was able to do that. And that's why some of this data is so important to say, yeah, people got better, but it wasn't enough to say that they were better from the bigger perspective. And so this report is a little bit longer than what you'll probably turn in. I'm not providing you a word count or word limit like the last paper, but this is an individual assignment, so it should be something that's structured to your clinical practice. I will grade it on this scale down below. This is a written communication rubric. And the goal of this is to really share your clinical practice from an informed clinician perspective. So I know that you may have a lot of other things going on, but if you can use something in your clinical practice that is guided from some of your research projects, so if you're looking at stuff that, say you're doing the weight-bearing lunge test, or you're already assessing someone's drop landing, how can you do an intervention that may be able to improve that, but you need to have pre and post data to support it. So rather than just saying we do Graston, or I do massage, or I decided to ergonomically assess people, because that's what I think, how can you justify what you're doing, why you're doing it, and if people are getting better based off that? So consider what you'll do with this. If you want to chat about your topic, please let me know. I look forward to seeing some of these. If they are good reports that are provided, I will contact some of you. There's a place that you can share some of these about what you did in your clinical practice and how it impacted you. Which is a great way to take a class assignment and turn it into something that can be helpful for other clinicians around the world that may be interested in introducing some of the similar factors that you were doing in your clinical practice. If you have any questions, please let me know. Look forward to reading these and seeing how these go, but take your time on it. So it's February 20th when you should start. You can start a little bit earlier if you want to, but the goal is not to rush through these and finish it in a day. This needs to be real data. Do not make anything up. The honesty and the ethics and morals behind this assignment, you can't, just don't do that. Like, I know that it could be easily, just tell me the things that you're doing and make up numbers. If anybody does that, it calls into question all of your ethics and morals, and I just really want to encourage you to try to measure your clinical practice using some of these things. If you have questions, concerns, or want to talk more about what you can do, let me know, and we can work on that. Thanks.